Welcome to Online Parent Academy. Thank you very much for joining us today for our segment with the Honorable Misha Stallworth, Board Member and Secretary for the Detroit Public Schools Community District School Board. Misha, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. We're really delighted to have you. Give us an introduction to yourself. How did you get your start, and what was the reason behind joining the school board?
Well, I've been a community organizer and involved in education for a long time, actually. I started really in high school with starting a mentorship program for middle school students in my community. And so since then, I have continued to work in community centers and really doing a lot of after-school programming and youth empowerment work. And so when the opportunity came to run for school board, a lot of the things that I was really focused on is that community empowerment aspect, is having elected leaders who are responsive to their constituents, and also having elected leaders who are focused on creating an environment where the people who live in our neighborhoods have good choices for themselves. They don't have to leave, or if they don't have the resources to leave, they don't have to feel badly about staying in their communities.
That's awesome. So one of the things you previously mentioned was that you were intentional about wanting to represent your community and provide them with good choices. Can you speak to what you've been able to do on the school board as far as creating those opportunities for parents and community leaders to be involved and help in the decision-making process?
Yeah, so there have been a few things that we've done as a board on the whole, so all 7 of us, and then there have been some things that I've taken up as kind of personal initiatives or things that I am very passionate about, and so I've been more involved in it than maybe some of the other board members, which is not to say that they weren't supportive, but just that, you know, if there was a task force meeting, for example, I would be the board member present. So in terms of the whole board, some of the things that we've started includes having community meetings once a quarter. So in our normal board meetings, it's a very rigid structure, which is required. And so there's not necessarily the opportunity for exchange between the board and the community. And we recognize a need to have more of that exchange, and that's why we started having community meetings once a quarter where people can come and ask us questions and we can actually respond in the moment to the best of our ability. Some questions we do need to go back and research, and we want to make sure we're getting accurate and good answers to folks, but we can at least have that conversation. People can hear more about the background thinking to some of our decisions, as opposed to in the formal board meeting where you really just kind of hear some of the discussion but the final answer. So that's one of the big things we've done as a board.
And for those quarterly meetings, how can parents and community members find out about them and attend?
So any and all of our board meetings are on the DetroitK12.org website.
Okay.
And there's a special board page that is detroit.org/board. And so what you'll see there at the bottom of the page is a list of calendar dates that has all of the upcoming meetings, whether they're committee meetings on finance, a special town hall meeting, anything. And I think one of the things that's important to note there is that we actually are legally required to post those meetings. So in addition to us wanting people to know when they are and wanting them to come, you don't have to worry about them getting missed either, because it's a legal requirement.
Love to know that you all remain in compliance with the notices, but continue to share the resources and other things that are available.
Yeah, so if that's one thing that we do as a board, something separate that I have taken upon myself is to start having sessions that we call All Aboard, and they're essentially orientation / short training meetings for really anyone in the community, but specifically parents and families, so that they can get introduced to how a board meeting functions, what's happening in the board meeting. Again, the board meetings are very formal, and not everyone has been in a meeting like that before. Not everyone understands how Robert's Rules of Order works, which is the language that we have to use. Not everyone can fully follow when we discuss these contracts and things like that. And so what I really do is take kind of an hour and a half, 2 hours out of an evening and sit with folks and go through just kind of the basic ins and outs of the board meeting, And that way people kind of have some of that language, they understand a little bit better what's going on. And my hope is that more and more people feel comfortable coming out to board meetings after having engaged in that session.
I've heard wonderful feedback from our parents on the All Aboard workshops. They've raved about how they feel more empowered and knowledgeable to go into board meetings and to just be equipped to handle and understand the proceedings. So thank you for that work.
I'm excited to hear people are liking them. That's what it's all about.
And we are delighted to announce that All Aboard workshops will continue to be given throughout the year through Parent Academy. And for more information, you can call 313-873-7490 or email parent.engagement@detroitk12.org. But Misha, while we have you here, can you give us 3 or 4 highlights of what parents learn in All Aboard workshops?
Yeah, so I think based on what we hear from the community, one of the top things that I like to explain is how closed session works. So there's typically a point in our meetings where we have to go behind closed doors to have a discussion, and there is almost always some tension in the audience about that. People want us to have all of our conversations publicly, which we definitely understand, but there are some subjects that have to be kept confidential. For example, HR things. Some of that information is posted publicly through our board docs website, but it'll be posted much more generally than how we discuss it behind closed doors. I don't think anyone really wants their employment talked about in front of an entire group of people, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that we'll go into closed session to discuss are things that are active legal proceedings. So just like if you have your own attorney and you have attorney-client privilege, you talk to them about things that they can't share with others, we have things that we have to talk about that are happening in court at that moment, and we can't talk about them publicly. But one of the things that's key about closed session is no decisions are able to be made in closed session. That's another thing that is actually the law. So while we can have discussion, we can't even ask one another, well, how are you going to vote on this when we get back outside? That's not allowed. We can just talk about it, make sure people have the information, are clear on the information, and if we have to make a decision, we do that again outside in the public. So that's a big one. Another big one, I think, is public comment. We do limit public comment to 2 minutes per person, and that allows for everyone to have an opportunity to speak, especially in a meeting that typically already goes to 10 o'clock at night. But we don't respond in that moment because we want to make sure we give people accurate information. And sometimes that becomes awkward when folks have questions and they're asking us in that moment and we're not able to say anything back. So those are two, the public comment and closed session are 2 things that come up and that people are very passionate about in the meetings and outside.
What is your advice for parents or community members who want to address the board and receive a response? What's the best way to reach you all?
So the best way to reach us is through our board secretary, Karen Morgan. You can send her an email. We all have our own emails as well, but just like anyone else in the community, some of us are better with email than others. So for example, myself and Member Peterson Mayberry are very responsive via email. But Dr. Taylor or Member Lemons may be better to reach by phone or directly through the board secretary, Karen Morgan. And then if you give public comment, you will be followed up with. It just won't be that night.
Okay. Can you talk to us about the structure of the board and their roles, especially in relation to the superintendent?
Sure. So we are a 7-member publicly elected board, and similar to, let's say, a job at another company where you may be a manager or a director, right? And then as you move higher up, you eventually get to your CEO, and your CEO is going to report to a board of directors. That's the same kind of structure we have at the district, where the 7 of us create policies and really try to facilitate a conducive space for learning and to support our students, but primarily for the superintendent, Dr. Vitti, to do his work of managing the day-to-day of the district. So kind of where that hard line is between us is that Dr. Vitti is in the district every day working with staff every day, working with students every day. Whereas board members, many of us have full-time jobs outside of the district. We may be on other boards for other organizations as well. And so we're not necessarily touching the day-to-day of the district. We're involved, we're checking our email, we're definitely talking to constituents, but we don't necessarily know what's happening at, Ludington Elementary Middle every single day.
Okay, that's really helpful to know. So can you give us some examples of a time where constituents reach out to the board members, but it may be better suited for them to reach out to someone on the ground in the district?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, first and foremost, we definitely want to emphasize that we always welcome people to reach out to us. We want to know what's going on. We want to know if there's something that is distressing folks. We definitely want to know if things are going well. Mm-hmm. We get less of those, but that's fine. We want to hear all of it. However, sometimes, depending on your challenge, you'll actually find a quicker resolution by going directly to district staff as opposed to coming to us. For example, I've gotten emails a couple times now from people who are trying to locate their high school diplomas or the diploma of a student while waiting for a job. So they need to send in this diploma so that they can become employed. If you send that to me, I may not be able to get to it within the time frame that you need. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm going to send it to HR so that they can respond. So now you've got two steps when you really needed this done quickly, and it would have been much better to go directly to HR in order to get that kind of information.
Okay. And what are some times in which you and other board members definitely feel as though constituents should reach out directly to you all to handle, a concern?
So we definitely are always concerned about the safety of our students. And so if safety is at risk, for sure, let us know. But more than anything, what's important is that people have really exhausted their options within the district. It's part of our job to make sure that there are really well qualified and good staff within the district whom you can work with every day. And so if you have a challenge at your school, we want you to work with your principal. If your principal maybe isn't doing the best job in your opinion, then we want you to work with their network leader, the person above them, and so forth and so on. And it can be exhausting. And if something, again, is a safety concern, then maybe you need to skip some of those steps. But overall, definitely reach out to the staff who are in your building and the staff who are supervising them. And that way we can make sure that your challenge is addressed in a really timely manner. A lot of times if you come straight to the board, again, we're going to have to investigate. We're going to end up sending it to district staff anyway, since they're doing it day to day. And then it'll come back to us and it just becomes a much more drawn out process.
Misha, thank you for outlining the complex but very thorough process of navigating through the board and the different roles and responsibilities just to help our parents understand the system, because it is built for them and for their students to ensure that they're receiving an excellent education and that they're safe and that we do our best to support the communities that support our young people. Are there any final thoughts in closing or things that you want to share to our parents?
I think the seven of us definitely feel really fortunate to be able to serve the parents and families in the district, and we want to do the best possible job for them and the best possible job at really providing an excellent education to their students. So we really look forward to seeing parents engage in the parent academies. I'm really excited to see parents at the all-aboard meetings so that they are equipped with the information to be able to really engage with the district and support their students so we can be partners.
Wonderful. Well, parents and community members, thank you again for watching our interview with Honorable Misha Stallworth. Again, you can look in the Parent Academy catalog to find out more about the All Aboard meetings, as well as some of our college readiness meetings where Misha will co-facilitate. Thank you and have a good one.